should I record or no? Yes.
Yes, I will. All right.
Now we're live.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
So the festivities that you see around. Hey. Thank you. The festivities that you see around. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of Classical Conversations, and then so this was their big party thing that they had.
Oh, you mean this one for me?
Well, that and you.
Oh, okay. First.
And then so
Welcome back.
my wife has to do one of the. She's got to learn how to play a recorder flute, so she can teach people how to play recorder flute. So she's at a very college level class on recorder flute playing. So she can then instruct that.
If she needs help, I got up to intermediate, and advanced recorder.
I will be honest with you. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
It's a real instrument.
As intermediate or advanced.
Yeah, it's a real instrument.
I'd like to see it actually show up in like the Ultimate Ninja Challenge. What is that show? American Ninja Warrior. Yeah, if they had like a level of recorder flute
There we go.
involved in that somehow, that'd be awesome.
Oh, my kids played it.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically, it's a glorified kazoo.
Now the nice wooden ones, especially alto through the contrabass, are really, really nice, like a bassoon.
Yeah, they're really instruments. They're not a kazoo,
So,
but it is kind of like a glorified kazoo.
it's not a kazoo.
It's kind of like one. But it is a real instrument.
Yeah, we were playing Mozart.
Yes.
No, I used to play the cone. It's cool.
I heard this song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, 100 times over the phone.
So, but the bottom line with that was my wife is not here, and so the kids are, so I will have to wrangle as well, and we'll see where it goes.
Good luck.
It'll be fun.
Yes, it will.
Let's go ahead and jump in. Mike, you want to go to prayer?
Okay. Well, Father in heaven, Lord, thank you for allowing us to gather together and study your word, fellowship. Help us to edify one another. Watch over Saul and be with those who are away, working and traveling. And we ask your blessings on everyone here, dear Lord. We thank you for your Son and the many promises of heaven that we have, dear Lord. Watch over Saul and thank you, dear Lord, for everything you've given us. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. All right, we are in 1 Kings chapter 11. Thank you. We're in 1 Kings chapter 11. And we talked last time about the meteoric rise of King Solomon. And when I say meteoric fall, it is a large fall very quick, right? And there's not going to be a whole lot said, but it just happens like that. There's this switch. If you back up to chapter 10, verse 23, you get this kind of summation of Solomon. It says, King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear wisdom. God has put in his heart, year after year, everyone who came brought him gifts and articles of silver and gold and robes and weapons and spices and horses and mules and lions and tigers and bears. So much. Right? And so, just anything they could take him, and they just loved to sit and be, because he was just an amazing guy. And just great summation of him at his peak. And then you get chapter 11, which is just really stinking disappointing. Because for someone to rise so high and then fall so far in less than a chapter's time span, in just a few verses, right? Time span is just a sad thing. So, chapter 11, verse 1. King Solomon, however, loved what? Wisdom. And so he sought wisdom all over the place. Is that what it says?
Women.
Oh, women, not wisdom. Foreign women. Foreign, right? So he loved foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonites, Hittites. He thought if a gal was good looking, then that was just fancy. And I'll tell you, do you guys remember back with Balaam and Balak? Do you know who Balaam was? Who was Balaam?
They were the one with he was the donkey guy.
Yeah, who was Balaam's confidant?
The donkey.
The donkey.
The talking donkey, right?
The donkey.
So Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his donkey was like, Shrek! What's going on, Shrek? Maybe not. But his donkey started talking to him, right? I'm a talking donkey. So, anyways, that's nonsense. It's so stupid.
Don't worry, we got to record it.
We can unrecord it. So, in any event, so his donkey starts talking to him, and so Balaam finds himself having this confidant of a donkey. That's the guy, that's the character here that we're talking about. And then Balaam is summoned to go on behalf of what king? Remember the king's name? Because I said it just a moment ago. Balak. Okay, and he wants him to curse Israel, and he doesn't do it multiple times. He blesses Israel, curses Israel, and we find from Revelation, from the book of Revelation, that what Balaam did in between one chapter and the next. You get the end of one chapter where he gives this great blessing. And I want to say it's 23 or 24 of Numbers. Does that seem right? Who knows? That seems right, rightish. But at the end of one chapter, he's like, blessings and blessings and blessings on Israel. And in the very next chapter, the very first, the second and third verse, it talks about how then the folks of Balak, all the pretty young ladies, started going over and saying, how you doing, guys? And the guys are like, go. You guys know how guys are, right? So we can't think straight. We see a pretty lady, and we're like, oh, we don't know what to do. Cannot think straight. And so all the guys from Israel started then, their hearts started going to, I want to say Balak was the king of like the Edomites or something. I may be mistaken. But, so in any event, started pulling them away. And how did the other nations, what did the other nations use to pull the hearts of Israel away from God? Sex. Right. Women. And it's interesting because not much has changed. It is true that a heart of a woman is less distracted by a good-looking guy than the heart of a man is distracted by a good-looking woman. I'm going to be honest with you. There's more good-looking about a good-looking woman than there is good-looking about a good-looking guy. Right? That's in my opinion.
I'm not sure that's
Some of you, you're like, yes, it's true. So,
it's obvious.
but I'll only say, what I'll say is this: you will notice that when these things come to pull at the hearts of a nation, that sexual immorality begins first with the men. It is just interesting. I have never heard of a nation where sexual immorality began first with the women. You think sexual immorality began with women in our country first? I don't think it did.
Here.
I think here in this country it didn't. I get that people adopted homosexuality with women before they adopted homosexuality with men first. But that wasn't a woman thing. That was a man thing. That was because men were fine with women liking women because guys are stupid. I mean, let's be honest about it. That's not, as much as people want to act like it's liberation to say homosexuality is fine. That's not liberation. That's more male domination, is what that is.
So the prostitutes at the temple in Greece were there because men wanted them there, and they found a good opportunity.
Correct. And then, what's really crazy is even liberal men and women both, but the liberal ideas carry the idea, well, no, let women do whatever they want. That always adopts females doing stuff for the benefit of males before it eventually adopts males doing dirty stuff, right? For the benefit. It ends up being male prostitution and whatnot. But every society accepts female prostitution before they accept male prostitution.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. And what was Lot's offer to them? Right?
I mean, they had homosexuality.
They had homosexuality, and even with Sodom and Gomorrah, I'm not favoring homosexuality, but even with Sodom and Gomorrah, what got them destroyed was not the homosexuality, although that was part of their bucket list of stupidity. What got Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed was their lack of hospitality, which is an interesting concept. Look it up, people. It's in the Bible. Anyway. So, but the bottom line is this: where is Solomon's heart turning?
Toward the idols.
He's doing exactly what if you don't study history, guess what?
Repeat it.
You're going to repeat it. And this is the case. And what's crazy is you will see quotes, literal quotes of stuff that had already happened and not worked out well. And we are literally cycling right back through the same stupidities over and over. Should Solomon have known, even if he never got around to reading, which by the way, what was one of the qualifications for king? What did you have to do? You had to write the whole first 5, at least the first 5 books of the Bible, you had to write them with your own stinking hand, so that the theory is, between your hand and your eyes, somehow it might touch your heart. Right? So he should have written it. Don't know that he did. I've never heard of a king that actually did, where it's recorded and so sat down to write. I don't know if that happened anymore. So maybe that no king ever did. But it was a command that whoever the king is would do that. And it's interesting because he should have known, and if nothing else, just the fact of history, where they had that run-in with Balaam and Balak, they should have figured out, oh yeah, that was terrible for us. But guess what? Solomon has got the idea, I am a wise guy. Don't ruin, don't do that, please. Let's discuss it. Go throw that in the trash. Thank you. So, he's up here mushing up oranges, making orange juice, but it's just on the table. So Solomon sets out and he thinks, I like the ladies, and so he starts getting himself a collector's edition set of ladies. Right? And so, like, people, I'll tell you, it's interesting, Solomon was legitimately a wise man. So here's one of the realities of it. Even wise men have great weaknesses, right? And that really should have been one of the blanks. It's not one of your blanks. But, I mean, that's blank worthy, right? So here's the deal. Approximately how many mother-in-laws did Solomon have? In all of his wisdom?
700.
No?
1,000?
Keep reading. 1,000 mother-in-laws. How many of you, I don't want to say one because I don't want to bother anybody, but how many of you could imagine that 2 mother-in-laws could be tough? We know that you love one of your mother-in-laws, but imagine if you had 2 mother-in-laws, that might get frustrating.
Where's it say 1,000?
Or
Right.
7 plus 3.
Yeah, 7 plus 3. He had 700 wives of royal birth
Concubine was
and
a
300
wife?
concubines. It was essentially a wife. It just wasn't a wife. Basically, the wives got first say. The wives got to say what we're having for dinner, and the concubines had to eat it. Right?
I didn't know about that.
This is the gist of it, right? Yeah. Yeah, a concubine is someone who would have a baby on behalf of the wife. But you still had to deal with, right? If you took somebody's concubine, you still had to deal with their mom. They got a mom somewhere. And guess what mothers have? Opinions. Did you know? Mothers come with opinions. So, yeah. So he had to deal with 1,000 bickering mother-in-laws on top of his 1,000 bickering wives. Right? Which, like I told you guys before, my dad one time said, one kitchen is not big enough for 2 women. It doesn't matter the size of the kitchen, it's not big enough for 2 women. And it's a true thing. It's a true story. When my stepmom comes and visits and whatnot, my wife literally just flat out has just said, the kitchen is hers, I don't need that drama. So she just surrenders, she'll do the white flag as my stepmom shows up. And she's like, here you go, have the kitchen. But notice it says at the end of verse 3, he had 700 wives and of royal birth and concubines, and what happened? Right. How could you keep your head straight? All the wisdom in the world can't protect you from that. Right? Can't protect you from 1,000 women. So, look at verse 3. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as David his father had done. On a hill east of Jordan, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for his foreign wives who burned incense and did what?
Offered sacrifices.
Offered sacrifices. Did you know that all 3 of those gods that were mentioned there require human sacrifices?
He's watching him do this?
Require human sacrifices, huh?
He's seeing him do this?
No, he's not seeing him. What's it say? Look at verse 8. He did the same for all his foreign wives who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. So he was a participant in this whole scenario. Because I'll tell you what happens if your wife likes sappy girly movies. Guess what sometimes you have to do?
Watch a sappy.
Watch a sappy girly movie, even though you would rather watch guns and kung fu and whatever and explosions and something about Vietnam. You find yourself sitting there watching The Prettiest Princess, with your wife because you love her. There's no movie called The Prettiest Princess. I'm sure there's got to be some movie somewhere called The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride. No, but that's a man movie. That's not even a movie. That's a movie that's so manly that only men can appreciate.
Yeah, you wish.
All right.
Well, I mean, what happened to all that wisdom? He's seen all that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, really, right? So, like I said, it goes to show that wisdom can't protect you from stupidity, right? I mean, if you commit to doing stupid things, at whatever point you draw the line for the boundaries of following God, that's the point where foolishness can win. Right? That's your Achilles heel. Yes?
Well, if you think about it this way, no matter how wise you are, all that has to happen is your attention to wane even for a moment. How many times in a day does our attention wane? So this guy, just one lapse of judgment, if he's not backing himself up or slowing his actions down, he's going to be doing all sorts of stupid stuff.
Well, and what's the greatest danger of being wealthy?
You can do anything you want that pops in your head.
You can trust in your wealth.
Yeah.
Right? What's the greatest danger of being brilliant? Trust in your brilliance. What's the greatest danger in being brave? Trust in your bravery. Right? So what's the greatest danger in being wise?
Trust in your own wisdom.
Guess what Solomon's doing? I think he's looking around and saying, I am the smartest guy in the world. I think I can handle 1,000 lions.
I think one thing that we haven't talked about is the power of a woman over her husband. To lead him astray if
Right.
she wants to.
Right.
Amen.
Right. Right. No, really, it's true though, because I would say it's hard enough as one man dealing with one woman and even dealing with a good woman, like to... See, I can't even finish, I'm not allowed to finish the sentence. I'll just say that. I'm not allowed to finish that sentence. But it's hard enough to do whatever it is that needs to be done in regard to that sentence. That I can't fill in that blank. And you go ahead and fill in your own blank for your own scenario, but I ain't filling in mine. Get that? I decided my gut more. So, but it is hard to resist a woman who's decided this is the color of paint I want on the wall. It's hard to resist a woman who's decided this is where I do not want to live, or I do want to live. You're going to really fight an uphill battle if you go to war with those things.
And the first thing he did was he broke away from the commandment of not intermarrying.
Right. There have been commands, there have been historical precedent,
Yeah.
but he's smarter than that. Anytime you think that you're smarter than what God has said, you will find your wisdom is failing you. Right? And so, verses 9 to 11, it says, The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. And I think that's almost like saying he had no excuse. Yeah.
I get two of the gods,
I think it's Ashtoreth,
but there's two more.
No,
Chemosh?
there's only three.
Chemosh.
Molech, and Ashtoreth.
There's Ashtoreth at the beginning of verse 3, then there's Molech in the middle of verse 3. Then you have Shemesh in the middle of verse 7.
Well, what about verse 5 that says Ashtoreth and Milcah?
Milcah is Molech.
Oh, that's the same name?
Yeah.
So you have G.
I-
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same in verse. Milcah. You have Milcah, or what do you have in that?
Got Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the detestable idol of the Ammonites.
That must be
Right, the detestable god of the Ammonites, Molech. The detestable god of the Ammonites is just a variation
So
on the
they're
name.
the same name?
Yeah, it's Molech.
Yeah.
Molech is mentioned twice there. There's 4 times that God is mentioned. Molech is mentioned twice. Molech is mentioned twice.
Who wrote Kings? Or who wrote this?
Who wrote Kings? So Kings was likely written by the the priests, right? It was just kept as an ongoing catalog by the priests as kings rose and fell. There has been some argument that Solomon is written it, but that doesn't make sense since there's things going on that are after Solomon. So it appears to be similar to 1st and 2nd Samuel also was written by priests, not written by Samuel, because Samuel dies in, I think, 2nd Samuel, right? But it's just an ongoing catalog by the priests. So he did the same for his former wives, verse 9 to 11. Sorry. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart and turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, since this is your what? Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant, my decrees, which I commanded you, I'll most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. So it's interesting because this is a fantastic verse for pointing out where the problem really is. Deeds and attitudes are two very different things. And sometimes you can do the wrong deed but with the right attitude. But you can never do the right deed with the wrong attitude. Because it never is the right deed if it's the wrong attitude. If your parents say clean your room, I'll clean, stick your room, take stuff, throwing everything around, and your parents hear you storing stuff around in your room, cleaning your room, your parents are not okay with you cleaning your room. They will come and fix your attitude. Right? Right? So, if you recall too, remember God had told them not to build any other temples. Right? And you guys remember back when they were coming into the promised land, there was one of the tribes that said, we're going to stay on this side of the Jordan. Everybody else went in. And then they built a replica of the temple. And all of Israel went out to meet them. And they were going to go to war with them. And they said, no, you got the wrong idea. We built this temple not as a place to worship, but as a reminder that we both have the same history, the same background, and the same God. So that in the future, your descendants won't say to ours, you have no hope, you have no share in the Lord with us. And all the people of Israel said, you saved us today. Now they did the wrong thing. They were not supposed to build that temple. It's clear they weren't supposed to build the temple. But what was their attitude in building the temple? Right? They had a flawless attitude when they built the temple. So you can do the wrong thing with the right attitude, or you can do the right thing with the wrong attitude. And the attitude or the thing is what makes it right or wrong. Attitude does a whole lot more of it. Right?
Well, I think people are easier. It's easier to forgive the thing if it was actually made a mistake, you know. But it's much harder to forgive contemptuous attitude.
Exactly right. And God's real hiccup here is with the attitude. If I'm curious, what would have happened had Solomon married these women from foreign countries, which he shouldn't have done, but then said, no, what I want is for you to know God, and spent his time trying to minister. That attitude probably would have served him far better than this attitude of, hey, keep your God, bring your religion, it's all good. Right? So, so it says, since this was Solomon's what? Attitude. So verse 14, and remember God has said, I'm going to raise up problems for you, I'm going to tear away the country from you, but I'll leave one little teeny piece of it for you. So then it says, the Lord raised up against Solomon an adversary, Hadad the Edomite from the royal line of Edom. So, where did this adversary come from?
The Lord God.
God raises up adversaries. God raises up adversaries. This is part of why, what makes nations rise and fall? God. God causes nations to rise and fall. The people who are in leadership, even if you have a lousy leader, truth, absolute truth be told. If you get a president you don't like, and if you get a president who leads your country into a world war and does every stupid thing you can go down the list of doing, and even every ungodly thing you can go down the list of doing. Whoever is president, whoever is in leadership, ultimately is there who's... God controls that scenario. Right? Now we still participate in all that stuff and do our role in those things, but ultimately God will decide who wins and loses elections and gets into different leadership and powers and things like this. And it may be the case at one point that God looks at America and says, what I want is, I'll just ask you this, and I feel bad because I know I am a sincere patriot myself, right? And I know that there are sincere patriots in here, right? But I will say, is God an American?
No.
No. God is not America first. Now, Americans ought to be for America before they are for other countries. But even before they're for America first, they ought to be for God first. And they ought to be for morality. Because I will tell you, an immoral America is of no value to this world. A world power that is immoral will do this world nothing but harm. We saw it in Germany. Right? We saw it even in Stalin. And Stalin actually was part of the cure for Germany. But wickedness does not make the world a better place. North Korea. Right? I mean, there's a great number. China. Like, I mean, we're really hitting the peripheral when we're talking about North Korea. Right? And immoral China and atheistic China does not do this world any favors. So,
just because you're a patriot doesn't mean that you're not.
right.
Because one of the candidates that we supported would always say to people when he was questioned, I'm Christian first, an American second, and a Republican third. And then,
Republican third. Christian first, and American second, and Republican third.
Who said this? Pence. Oh, Pence.
no.
I didn't hear the first part of your
Well, I
statement.
said a candidate we supported.
Oh, oh.
Well,
He's not
because it's being broadcast, so I'm not going to say his name. But he's not
But
in
it is a
office.
guy.
He's not in office.
Right.
I think partly because he said that.
Right. But it should be the case. Truthfully, I will tell you, Democrats shouldn't be Democrats before they're Americans. Republicans shouldn't be Republicans before they're Americans. And neither of those things should be any of those things before they're Christians. Right? So, yeah, it is a matter of... And I will say, too, the founding fathers of this country understood that as well. They felt that way.
Yeah.
Right? So, so here are the names of three primary... I'm sure there were other problems that came across his table as well. But the three primary troubles that were brought against Solomon... what's his name? The first one?
Hadad.
Hadad. The Edomite. Right? And then if you look down at verse 23, it says, And God raised up against Solomon another adversary, Rezin, who was made out of polyester.
Is that supposed to be sun instead of sin?
Huh? Yeah, it's supposed to be son. Yeah. Sin of Elijah. Yeah, it's supposed to be son of Elijah.
Oh.
And then, then verse 26. And Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who was a baseball player, but he didn't have any arms. He's up. Anyways, but it helps you remember the names, right? So there you go. That's good.
Oh, you remember something.
Helps remember. So, and here's another thing that's cool. So, in between verse 25 and verse 26, right in this time, this little gap that you have in between verse 25 and verse 26, this is when the book of Ecclesiastes was written. Which is an interesting thing. Because in Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13, someone go ahead and read that. Because during these troubles, guess what Solomon figured out?
Follow the rules.
How important wisdom is.
Yet the end of the matter all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole.
Right? So, in between verse 24, verse 25 and verse 26 is when Solomon pins that.
Yeah.
Right? When he'll actually say, the end of the matter is this, fear God, keep his commands. Doing other stuff just causes you trouble, and you end up with way too many mother-in-laws.
And he says it comes from your vanity.
Right?
That's what
Right.
he's saying.
And
Your-
he'll even say, if you look at the whole book of Ecclesiastes, he'll say, I didn't know what to do with myself, so I went to chasing women. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I thought I'll plant vineyards. I didn't know what to do with myself. The whole thing is, I succeeded at everything, and then I didn't know what to do with myself. I succeeded at what I did, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And the end of it is all of this stuff is meaningless. Right? The whole duty of mankind is to fear God and keep His commandments. Right? So, through these things that God is bringing up against them, at least he's learning. And I will say one of the great signs of wisdom is the capacity to learn. Some people cannot learn. I mean, if it had to save their life, they couldn't learn. You know. So, let's see here. And let's look how Jeroboam actually comes into play. Okay, so it says, also Jeroboam, son of Nebat, rebelled against the king. He was one of Solomon's officials, an Ephraimite from Zeruah, and his mother was a widow named Zeruah. So here is the account of how he rebelled against King Solomon and had built the supporting terraces and had filled the gap of the wall of the city of David his father. Now Jeroboam was a man of standing, and when Solomon saw how well the young man did his work, he put him in charge of the whole labor force of the house of Judah. So Jeroboam was a hard-working man, and he was successful at what he did. Whenever I would go and do jobs in my younger years, and I'd go and do jobs, we'd have a prayer right before the job started, and every time we would pray, dear Lord, make me fast and efficient. That'd be part of what we would pray. This guy was that. He was fast and efficient. Right? Jeroboam was fast and efficient at what he did. So he achieved things noticeably comparative to anybody else, because he could just get in and realize what needed to be done and get it done. So it says, about that time Jeroboam was going out of Jerusalem, and Ahijah the prophet of Shiloh met him on the way, wearing a new cloak. The two of them were alone in the country, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, take 10 pieces for yourself, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. See, I'm going to tear the kingdom out of Saul's hands and give you 10 tribes. But for the sake of my servant David and the city of Jerusalem, which I have chosen, of all the tribes of Israel, he will have one tribe. I will do this because they have forsaken me and worshipped Asherah. By the way, how many tribes are there?
12.
How many pieces did he tear his cloak into?
12.
So this is interesting. What's happening with the 12 pieces? Did you guys notice that?
Mm-hmm.
How many pieces of this cloak does he give Jeroboam?
10.
And he says, and I'll leave one with who? With, what's his name? Jeroboam and Rehoboam. So he's going to leave one of those with Rehoboam. So what happens to the other? Isn't there another piece of the cloak there?
Yeah.
What does that represent? Anybody? The Levites. Right? Yeah, that's the priests, right? So guess who is not part of this whole bunch of nonsense between the Civil War and all this kind of stuff, this feud going on? They're not supposed to be part of it. They don't get to be fought over between stupid kings. They belong to God. And so it appears to me that he keeps. So verse 33. It says, I will do this because they have forsaken me and worshipped Asherah, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Molech, the god of the Ammonites, and have not walked in my ways, nor done what is right in my eyes, nor kept my statutes or laws as David, Solomon's father, did. All of these are abortion gods. They're all abortion gods. And by that what I mean is, if you needed to improve your economy, you killed your baby. You'd bring your newborn baby. If you wanted to get better rains or crops or anything like this, if you needed an economic improvement, you would kill your babies. Right? I want to point out, there are other gods that exist at the time. There's other people doing other stuff. The ones that really tick God off. Is God fine with idols? No. He's not fine with any idol. But there is a point where people are thumbing their nose at God saying, I dare you to do something. And abortion is one of those points. Killing your babies is one of those places where you're basically telling God, I dare you to step in. You know, in the New Testament, I think it's in the book of James, it says, true religion is this, to take care of widows and orphans and keep yourself from being corrupted by the world. What if instead of taking care of widows and orphans, you went out and found old people and said, you're old, I'm going to kill you. You went out and found orphans and said, you're orphans, I'm going to kill you. Now that sounds almost comical, like who would do that? You know that has been practiced by nations, by world-leading nations. This is what Germany did. And you know that our abortion system that we have today, the Planned Parenthood system that we have today, the whole eugenics thing was started out of Hitler's group. I can't remember the gal's name. What do you get? Anybody remember the gal's name that started Planned Parenthood? Margaret Sanger. She was part of the group that came with that whole theory and thought that eugenics thought was we can get rid of poverty class by just breeding and killing them out. Yes.
And even just a regular era where people aren't up in arms, neglect is worse than direct attack because it means you totally don't care. It's kind of like you're behind and psychological stuff behind even a bully. They care enough even to sit there. They don't know how to interact with the person. So it's even worse when we just don't do anything. We're just bystanders and just don't even go and persecute them. We just ignore them totally.
For the older though, there is a movement that, and it's sly and it's they're careful about it. But they ask you, is your life worth living? Do you ever feel like maybe you're not useful or you're a burden?
Well, in the medical world, they talk about an end-of-life plan. I don't know how. What do they word it here? What do they call it up here? Is it end-of-life plan?
End-of-life counseling, yeah.
But it's some kind of plan. If for some reason you become unconscious, or if you fall below a certain level of health, what shall we do?
Yeah.
And Medicare, I will just say this is what happened with my grandfather. I don't know if this is the case everywhere, but with my grandfather, it was cheaper to give him drugs and medicate him to death than it was to give him insulin so that he can recover from an insulin-induced coma, which is not a complicated thing to fix. Like, insulin is not that expensive. I would have been glad to pay for it. But it was, Medicare said, well, if you will pay to kill him, we'll pay for it. Like, if you will accept death, we'll pay for it. If you're going to do insulin, then, we'll share the cost. We're going to have to come out of your pocket. But if you're going to, kill yourself, then we'll foot the bill.
And they mentioned the word burden. Are you a burden? In other words, they're
Putting your thought on, right?
put that fact that you're a burden if you're old.
Right, and did you know, I'm going to tell you guys a secret, there's some old people who are a burden. Who cares? Right. You know, when a baby is born, I literally heard somebody one time say, well, abortion is not big deal, and I know that person because, if they were out on the table and this and that, they wouldn't be able to survive. Do you know there are some adults who, if left to their own devices, would not be able to survive? Like, at what point do you stop killing people? If the definition is, well, can you survive by yourself? I mean, there are even, I'm not even talking about mentally handicapped, I'm talking about there are intelligent adults who, if you were to not have all the babysitting of our civilization, if they couldn't go to McDonald's and buy a cheeseburger, they would die. Because they wouldn't know where food comes from. Like, they would look at a cow and think, what do I do with that? Right? So it's ridiculous. We've got to have better standards. We've got to decide that life is valuable because it's created in the image and likeness of God. And then, of course, there's the governor of Alaska, who somebody was talking about, I don't remember, something along the line of retarded kids and whatnot, and she, what is her name? Palin?
Yes, Sarah Palin.
Palin? And she has a mentally handicapped child, and she said, I don't have any problems with my kids. I love and enjoy my kids, and they're a blessing. Right? And people talking about, well, if you're born, you got this and that. By the way, too, I'll just say with Jean, they specifically said, well, Jean might have medical issues and this and that. She's going to have problems and whatnot. Da, da, da. Are you sure you don't want to just terminate this pregnancy so that you don't have to deal with those things? Because their tests that looked into the womb through magic fairy dust had decided the entire future and life of Jean. And I will tell you, there ain't nothing wrong with that girl. Except she's a little hyper for insects.
And she likes pictures.
And she spits out boogers. But guess what? There are things people can live through. Right? So that's okay. Too funny. And I'll tell you, if we had to kill people who spit out boogers, we'd be in trouble too. Right. So these are all abortion gods. And so if you look down at, as we continue, it says, "But I will not take the whole kingdom of from Solomon's hand. I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of David my servant. But I will give one tribe to his son," verse 36, "I will give one tribe to his son, so that David my servant may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem." So look at verse 40.
Wait, you skipped the part that I wanted you to hit.
Okay.
I want you to explain to me the city where I chose to put my name, capital name.
Right? Right. So Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
You think it's just Jerusalem?
Yeah.
You think there's something else?
No, he's talking about Jerusalem.
Okay.
That's where the temple was.
Okay.
Right? So he's talking about Jerusalem.
Okay.
And anytime he talks about the city where I chose to put my name, especially when he's talking in the Old Testament, he's talking about Jerusalem. Now later on in the New Testament, that's going to have deeper application. At this time, they're not thinking about the church. Right?
So does that mean the ark?
It means, so the place where the temple is. If you remember Solomon prayed this...
Noah's ark, but the ark of the covenant.
Ark of the Covenant, yes, was part of that. But Solomon, when he builds the temple, his dedication, he says, God, if when people look to Jerusalem, to this where this temple has been built, this place for your name, and they pray and they cry out to you, hear their prayers and forgive them of their sins. That's the scenario, that's the context that he's talking about. So, notice verse 4. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt when Shishak the king and stayed there until Solomon's death. So how many of you watch Star Wars? Right? So blame leads to the path of the dark side.
Star Wars?
Huh?
Star Wars?
What leads to the path of the dark side?
Yes.
Star Wars.
I say murder.
Well, you guys don't watch Star Wars very much. Fear.
Here.
Fear and walking.
My goodness.
Yep.
That was too easy.
Fear leads to the path of the dark side.
Yes.
And it happens to be, by the way, George Lucas, when he wrote all the Star Wars stuff, and it's interesting, the modern stuff now that Disney has Star Wars, they're rewriting it, and they're creating a third type of Jedi. Did anybody know about this? There have historically always been two types of Jedi. The Jedi of what side? The light side, and the Jedi of
Dark.
the dark side, right? There's traditionally been that. Now, at one time, when he first sat down to write this, George Lucas kicked around the theory of having a Jedi that is an intermediate. He is kind of good and kind of bad, and he's just an intermediate guy. But then he said, well, no, this is dumb because it really distracts from the story I want to tell, because the story of Star Wars is supposed to be good versus evil. There's supposed to be clear light and clear darkness, which is why there is the light and the dark. It's supposed to be like, these are spiritual concepts that he was writing into the movies. Disney got it, went back and found some old manuscripts of his, and realized that there's this third type of thing, and I can't remember if they have a name for this type of Jedi, but there's this third type of Jedi now who's supposed to be not really good, but not really bad. And now Disney is writing this character and this typology into it, and these latest films that you're finding here, by the way, one of the things that Luke Skywalker leaves to go find is how to become this third type of Jedi, which is neither good nor bad. And I will tell you that is strategic as well. Because the suggestion now used to be Star Wars painted a clear picture of good versus evil. And if you even pay attention to what's going on in society, society as a whole is trying now to paint a clear picture that there is no good versus evil. It's just be complacent. Don't be good, but don't be bad. Just be mediocre. And this is what's now becoming reflected in Star Wars. Just so you know. However, guess what it is that is leading Solomon to want to kill Jeroboam? Who was it that said that Jeroboam was going to be king? God said that. Who was it that said David was going to be king? God said that. And what did fear lead Saul to do? Try and kill David. What is fear leading Solomon to do?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me that now Solomon is finding himself falling into a place you would think he would never go. Now, it doesn't get into detail about how that plays out, but what it says is Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled. You could have said that about Saul and David. And crazily, Solomon is the bad guy here. So, verse 41, as for other events of Solomon's reign, all he did and the wisdom he displayed, they are written In the book of the Annals of Solomon, Solomon reigned in Jerusalem and over all Israel for 40 years. And then he rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David with his father. And Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him as king. So Rehoboam and Jeroboam are two different people. Their names just sound similar. Rehoboam will be the king of Judah. Remember, he said, I'm going to give you one piece of this cloak. Jeroboam will be the king of the other 10 tribes. Okay? So, Rehoboam went to Shechem. Rehoboam is Solomon's son. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all the Israelites had gone there to do what? To make him king. So who wanted Rehoboam to be king? As far as people are concerned.
All of Israel.
All Israel. Everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone wanted him to be king. So, it says, when Jeroboam son of Nebat heard this, he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon. He returned to Egypt. So they sent for Jeroboam, and he and the whole assembly of Israel went to Rehoboam and said to him, Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you. Rehoboam answered, Go away for 3 days, and then come back to me. So the people went away. So what do the people want? It's fantastic. That's exactly what I put.
Tax cuts.
Yeah, that's what they want, some relief. You know, they've had a good run, they've been doing great, they've been accomplishing much, but they got a new king and they're like, hey, we've been working hard, can we get a day off?
Jeroboam is going to be the king of Israel?
Jeroboam's gonna be, but he hadn't played out yet. Rehoboam right now is the guy they're talking to.
Okay.
So they're talking to Solomon, and this is how these 10 tribes are getting torn away from. So then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. And Solomon was what kind of a guy? What's he known for? Being wise. And so here Rehoboam is consulting the wise guys to the wise guy. But they're too stupid. Right? So they replied, Today if you will be a servant to these people and serve them, they will give you a favorable answer and they will always be your servants. It's not bad advice. Verse 8, But Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders, gave him and consulted the young men who he had grown up with. Because everybody has their own little crowd of pals. Right? And he asked them, What is your advice? How should I answer these people who say, Lighten the yoke? The young men had grown up with him replied, Tell these people who said to you, Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but made your yoke lighter. Tell them my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. Imagine carrying that little finger around. Just drag it everywhere you go. My father laid on you a heavy yoke, and I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips, but I'm going to bring out some scorpions and poke you in the eye. He didn't say the eye thing, right? But he's saying it. Right? The bottom line is, he's like, You think my father was bad? How dare you come here and ask me for relief? I'll show you relief. I will relieve your burdens with more burdens. Right? And so then you get verse 16. When all Israel saw that the king refused to listen to them, they answered the king, What share do we have in David? What part in Jesse's son? To your tents, O Israel, look after your own house, David. Watch your back, David. That's what they're saying. Right? So, a gentle answer turns away what?
Wrath.
Amen. Wisdom is lost on the young and the foolish. Wisdom is lost on the young and the foolish. My grandfather, one time I went to my grandfather, and my wife at the time was getting a check because her father passed away. So she's getting an insurance check from AIG. And I don't know if you remember this, but at one time, it really looked like AIG was going to go bankrupt. Anybody remember that? Mm-hmm. And so my wife and I sat around and talked about it, and we thought, well, what should we do? And so we talked about just getting our money out of AIG while we do get the money out, because for crying out loud, who wants to have a bankrupt company owe them money? Nobody wants that. So we went and talked to my grandfather about it, because he's the smartest guy that I knew. And my grandfather said, just relax, this too shall pass. Just get over it. And I thought, and I love my grandfather, but I thought, you don't understand what's going on, Grandpa. You're old. I love you, but you're old. You don't get it. So we withdrew the money. And you know, anytime you withdraw money from an insurance thing like that, what happens?
You lose a bunch.
You lose a whole bunch. I mean, like a bunch. So we lost a bunch of doing that, but we withdrew the money. And then we talked to him about what should we do with it if we do that. And he said, well, if you're going to do that, then pay off the house that you already have. And I said, no, that's also not a great idea, because what we could do instead of paying that house off is then buy a triplex and then have that pay the house off that we have. And I will tell you, in both of those scenarios, guess who was right? In my brilliant wisdom, I really thought hard and thought, man, you've got a great idea, Grandpa. You don't understand it. Guess who was right? My grandpa. My wife and I have talked about it, and we talked about, what if we had that money and we just, we looked at it and we thought, we want to go, we were, legitimately wise with it. And so we wrestled with those, I wish I would have done this. Anybody ever have one of those moments? I wish I would have done this. Right? Easy thing to have. Both of us have come to the conclusion that it wouldn't have mattered because we're too young to know what a smart idea was.
Yeah.
You know? And by the way, when I was even younger than that and I made too much money for my own stinking good, didn't know what to do with that either. And it isn't because I was stupid, but just when you're young and things are going a certain way, you imagine, no, this is the way things go. Right? Until things don't go that way.
Don't look out for the hard times that may come ahead.
Right. So my grandfather was right, and even with genuine respect for him, I was not smart enough. And I even told myself when I sat down with him, before I ever sat down with him, I thought, whatever he says, I will commit to doing. But then when it came to it, I could not get myself to do it. It's disappointing. Disappointed myself for that. But
But you have wisdom.
hopefully, that's what I thought then.
I had a friend one time that said, if you wish away the experience, you surely will lose the wisdom of it.
Say again?
If you wish away the experience, you'll surely lose the wisdom of it.
Right. Yeah. So, here we have, he doesn't want to listen to the old wise guys. He's got his own smart ideas that are just so much better than people who have been around the block. So wisdom is lost on the young and the foolish. And Israel's response, they have in verse 16, and there should have been a space there because these aren't actually as connected as it appears to be. But then there is a statement here that's genuinely prophetic. And it says this, but as far as the Israelites who were living in the towns of Judah, Rehoboam still ruled over them. King Rehoboam sent out Adoniram, who was in charge of forced labor, but all Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam, however, managed to get into his chariot and escape to Jerusalem. So
It's rather hard when you're
it's a
dead.
hard day, right? So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. Now, I'm sure that the author of that, and the Bible says that no prophecy ever came from the prophet, it came from God. I'm sure that the author of that did not intend to be prophesying, but it is a reality that even to this day, Israel continues to be in rebellion to the house of David. What is the house of David today? Christ. Right? And Christ will say in Matthew chapter 23, verse 39, someone go to read Matthew 23, verse 39, please.
Anybody, come on. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Right. And guess what the scenario is? Even today. Right? That's New Testament, and that's still the scenario for Jesus. That true wealth, still the scenario for Israel, that true success. And they have gone for the past 2,000 years, right, with dealing with ups and downs, but even their ups have never been anything like what they have been at their actual ups. They have always just kind of held on to a remnant of land. That's it. Yeah.
So that's the answer.
So the answer is Israel needs to decide that Jesus was more than a prophet. That Israel as a nation needs to decide that he's more than a prophet. But this statement is prophetic. The statement here where he says, so Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. Right? So the finest thing that we can do for the country of Israel is to minister to their hearts. More than anything else. So, and then a beautiful thing happens. One of the most phenomenal things that I wish we could learn today with Democrats and Republicans and all the weird different things going on in our society, says when Rehoboam, verse 21, when Rehoboam arrived in Jerusalem, he mustered the whole house of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 fighting men to make war against the house of Israel and regain the kingdom for Rehoboam, son of Solomon. But this word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God. Say to Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, the whole house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the rest of the people. This is what the Lord says: do not go and fight against your brothers, the Israelites. Go home, every one of you, for this is my doing. And look at the next couple of words. So they obeyed the word of the Lord and went home again as the Lord had ordered. How awesome would it have been if a preacher would have showed up at one of those, when people were tearing up Portland and all this stuff because we got a president they didn't like. If a preacher would have showed up down there and said, stop it, go home, we're brothers.
They'd probably been stoned if they could get away with it.
I will say, the thing that would have made that an awesome experience is if the people would have obeyed. Because it would have just been, you're right, it would have just been another tragedy if the people would have been so wicked in heart that somebody comes out and says, stop this, and they just go ahead and kill the person who's the only innocent person standing around. Right? But what a beautiful thing it is here that a preacher was able to come out and say, guys, stop this. It's not what God wants. And the people are sober and wise enough. By the way, wise rulers make wise people. And this is one of the wisest things a country has done for itself in the history of the world. Anytime a country can do this. One of the wisest things, another one of the wisest things is Tiananmen Square. When a guy out there with a couple of grocery bags can stop the army tanks and stop them. And the guy in the tank is not so blinded by loyalty to stupid agendas that he can actually stop the tank and quit. What a beautiful thing it is to be sober and minded enough to surrender. I will tell you, everybody looks at the guy with the grocery bags as a hero, and he certainly was. But there's also something phenomenal to be said about the tank driver. I don't know who the tank driver was. But what a beautiful thing it is in a military that's being violent and cruel to its own people, for someone in that military to say, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's bravery in itself. It would have taken nothing to just push forward on the clutch and just a little hiccup and go on about your day.
That he lost his life.
I don't know. I hope he didn't. But I will tell you, if he did, in any event, I don't know if the guy's saved or not, right? So I get that side of it. But I can tell you, he got a smile on that moment.
But if he did lose his life, it wasn't at the hand of that driver.
No. She's saying the driver lost his life. For not following that. No, she's saying she bet. Yeah. I don't know that he did or not. I don't know that any of us. I don't think any of us are claiming to know that he did.
No, we don't.
But I will say that's one of the finest things I have respect for the Chinese military is the guy who did is that driver, because it tells me in that Chinese military, even if they're going to have a dominating rule over people, that there are people even in the military who say this isn't right. And I wish that would have happened in Germany. Right? To the effect that it actually got somewhere. Like, I get that there were people in the military who said this isn't right, but then they lost their lives. I get that there's that reality that went on. But how great it would be if there were more people like that. Right? So, verse, let me see what time it is. 2 minutes? Well, let's finish this chapter at least. So, verse 26. Jeroboam thought to himself. Now you have Rehoboam is king of Judah. Jeroboam is king of the other places, the 10 tribes. Except for, of course not the Levites. So Jeroboam thought to himself, the king will now likely revert to the house of the kingdom, will now likely revert to the house of David. If these people go up and offer sacrifices to the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, they will again give their allegiance to their Lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. They will kill me and return to King Rehoboam. Is he thinking about what's best for the people?
No.
What's he thinking about?
So,
That's absolutely right. And so what you find is Jeroboam is fighting for the hearts of men, but it's not the kind of fight for the hearts of men that is a noble fight. By the way, if you didn't realize it, politicians fight for the hearts of men, whether they care about you or not. They fight for your hearts. That's what any politician wants, is for them to have your heart. whether they care about you or not. They want you to have your heart because they know if they have your heart, then they got your vote, and they got your allegiance and all that other kind of stuff. So you get people who don't even care about you who want to have your heart. And this is Jeroboam's scenario. So guess what he does as a political move? It says, after seeking advice, the king made 2 golden calves. He said to the people, it's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yes.
You know who said that originally? Aaron.
When he came down from the mountain, and they were making the golden.
Right. Moses came down from the mountain and they're all worshiping this, and I'll just jump right out and it's all right? But it's interesting because what he does, why does he say, now there's 2 motives, but what's the motive that he sells the people for, hey, worship these calves?
So they don't go back.
He tells them it's a matter of convenience.
Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting because one of the things you see here in the political realm, there's an inside game and an outside game. And what's Jeroboam's inside game?
Keep them there.
He wants to secure his position. What's his outside game?
I'll give you what you want.
Convenience.
Convenience.
Yeah.
Convenience. Genuinely. He says, look what he says. It's too much for you to go all the way up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods. That's how he sells it to them. Guess how we got sold on those stinking x-ray machines that you got to go through for the airport? Guess what the outside game is? It's for your safety. You don't have to worry about terrorists. If you have this, you don't have to worry about terrorists. Raise your hand if you still have worries about terrorists.
Yes.
Do you know those machines did not take that away?
No.
When I go through an airport, I still get worried about terrorists. Didn't do anything for me, but the promise is we won't have to worry about terrorists because we have an x-ray machine. So we can tell if someone has breast implants or not. And then you're safe. Right? Thank goodness we're safe from gelatin implants. So, it's too much. Stay here. These are the guys who brought you up out of Egypt, which is a recitation of Exodus chapter 32, verse 4. One he set up in Bethel, another in Dan, and this thing became a sin. The people went as far as Dan to worship the one there. By the way, when it's saying the people went as far as Dan to worship the one there, what they're saying is it would have been shorter to just go to the actual temple.
Yeah.
But they're even going further distances, so which is interesting because the promise of convenience has actually proven false. Guess what happens anytime they promise you safety or any of this stuff in exchange for, right, your liberties or any other thing that it ought to be, right? You're losing out. Those things aren't true stories, right? Free education. You know what? I've heard people talk about, well, I put my kids in public school because it's free. It is not free. I will just let you know that is a lie. So, Jeroboam built shrines on the high places and appointed priests from what? All sorts of people, even though they were not Levites. What in the world is going on? So, he's fighting for the hearts. Jeroboam offers the people a convenient religion. And Jeroboam appoints anyone as priest as long as the people are happy. So anyone, man, woman, child, Israelite, non-Israelite, Levite, non-Levite, anybody who want to be priest, that's just fine. Because if you are a priest, that means you're endorsing what I'm selling. Right?
King James Version says the lowest of people.
The lowest of people, that's right. That's right. All the random vagabonds who don't have any concern for anything, they're like, sure, we'll buy in. By the way, if you ever, well, I shouldn't say anything. I don't want to be snotty. I saw an opportunity for snottiness, and then I heard myself getting ready to gear up for it, and there's no need for that.
The power play of kings controlling priests carried on a lot further than Jeroboam.
Right. Well, yeah, you get into the Catholic Church, you get into the 600 all the way up until like the 16, 17, 1800s, and there's that play still wrestling. But it's interesting, there is nothing new under the sun, and this is even before the Catholic Church existed.
Right.
And there's this war of who's going to appoint who. Right.
Hitler used the priest during World War II. That's true.
Right. Well, one of Hitler's arguments against the Jews, ironically, first off, Hitler was an atheist. In case you guys did not know, but it just goes to show how no conscience soaks into these people that do these villainous things. Complete atheist, but his accusation was to get the support of Christian-esque people, he'd say, well, the Jews killed Jesus. And he would cite that as part of a reason why we have to kill the Jews. It's nonsense. Why on earth would you cite anything? If you're not going to believe in God, leave the Bible alone. Just don't even touch it. If you don't care about it at all, if you're going to, I would rather you just leave it alone than take it and manipulate it for your political stupidity. You know. So, and I want you to notice too. Check this out. It says he instituted a festival on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the festival held in Judah, and offered sacrifices on the altar. This he did in Bethel, sacrificing calves. Sacrificing the calves he had made, and at Bethel, and he also installed priests at the high places he had made. On the 15th day of the 8th month, a month of his own choosing. So he knows that there is legitimacy to the Jewish religion. So what is he trying to do?
Copy.
He's trying to copy it. Do you know what that means? He's convicting himself. His own actions are testifying that's real, and what I'm doing isn't. So if I want what I'm doing to look real, what do I have to copy? That. I got to copy the real thing. Right? That in itself is a judgment against himself, right? And so notice that Jeroboam is copying true worship. This shows he knows what he ought to be doing. Right? And next time we will pick up on chapter 13. And chapter 13 has got some great, I'm sure you guys will say, I am confused by this chapter. Go ahead.
We always say that it's 10 tribes and 2 tribes, but actually Jeroboam only has 9 tribes because Benjamin went with Judah for the 2
We'll have to talk about that.
into the tribe of Judah.
So as of this year, right, what we read today, said that Jeroboam got 10.
But down at verse 23, Judah and Benjamin go together.
Right, and Judah is considered what kind of a tribe? Anybody know?
It's in it.
Yeah. What, so Judah will be called a half tribe. Benjamin will be called.
Yeah, Benjamin.
Yeah. Well, and I think Benjamin and Judah will be called half tribe.
Ephraim and Manasseh were the ones that split to take over Joseph.
We'll have to talk about that. I am not prepared to answer that question at the moment. I'll have to get back to you with further information.
Be continued.
So, but let me write it down. Actually, write that, if you could write that down for me and give it to me, and I'll put it in my Bible and I'll take care of that. My other mic. Do you mind going to these verbs?
Oh, yes, sir. Almighty God in heaven, I ask you to hear my prayer today. Dear loving Heavenly Father, we are so grateful and we are so thankful for this time we get to spend together studying your word, Almighty God. We thank you. We thank you for Cody's knowledge, Cody's ability to teach us and share with us. Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you enable us, each and every one of us. Enable us to take this information we've learned today and carry it in our hearts, Almighty God, as we continue out the week until the Sabbath. Help us carry it. Let us carry it, Almighty God. Let us use it. These things I ask in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Thank you guys for being here.
Are we showing
What?